Hello all. Here is the 10th of my monthly reports. Much of October has been a time to turn up the heating and stay in the warm and the dry. There is a very good reason why my other YouTube identity is called Him Indoors. We did manage a couple of excursions though. The first was to visit family in southeast London. It was a lovely weekend, although the drive down was legitimately a nightmare. A journey that should have taken 2 hours took 5.5, which we really could have done without. I mean, we have recovered, but there is definitely a reason why my wife's other YouTube identity is called Her Indoors. Our other trip out was to a local National Trust property called Charlecot Park. A well-presented stately home with Victorian interiors, as well as kitchen, scullery and washhouse, along with an impressive collection of historic carriages, formal gardens and a deer sanctuary in the adjoining parkland. All in all, a very nice day out. We also had a few other smaller family visits and saw all of the grandchildren. I read 2 new books this month. The first was The Poisoned Chocolates Case by Anthony Berkeley. This is a classic of the golden age of detective fiction, written in 1929. A group of 6 armchair detectives each present their own solution to a recent murder, based on evidence from the police and from their own investigations. It's a very unusual structure, since most stories in this genre show first the murder and then the investigation, with the detective's solution unveiled only in the last chapter or 2. By contrast, The Poisoned Chocolates Case is predominantly made up of 6 of these unveilings, and Berkeley pulls off the impressive feat of making each of the different solutions very well argued and persuasive, so that you find yourself being convinced by each of them in turn, against your better judgment. My second book was Normal Women by Philippa Gregory. This is a women's history of England from 1066 to the 21st century. It's an impressive piece of scholarship, giving an in-depth view of what we know of the lives and lifestyles of women through the centuries, at all levels of society. Gregory does a good job of breaking this down in a manageable and organised way, providing exhaustive references to where her evidence is, but avoiding too dry an academic tone. She has produced a work that I, as a non-historian, found accessible and interesting, providing enough historical context that I could make sense of why changes were happening without ever losing sight of where her focus was. She deftly balances the details of what women were doing in each given period with the counterpoint of how men at the time reacted to that, or what they wrote about it. While Gregory does make regular asides from a modern feminist perspective, she is also very careful to avoid ascribing an anachronistically feminist viewpoint onto the women of earlier time periods, and goes out of her way to help the reader understand the choices and behaviours of these women in the context of the, for example, medieval Christian worldview that they would have grown up with. There were times when the story she was telling was exactly what I expected it to be, and other times when it surprised me and overturned my preconceptions. I'm really pleased that I read it. Looking forward to November, I'm doing a writing challenge. The plan, and I have managed it so far, is to write short stories, with 1,000 words as my daily target, and with the extra challenge that I must either start or finish a short story every day of November. You can see some of the stories at thatandydavisfellow.com and follow my progress in the blog that I've now added to that site. And that's it for this time. See you next month, or maybe next week over at Him and Her Indoors. The link to all of that is in the description as usual. As ever, I love you all. Stay well.